So initially we weren't going to do this video, but we actually decided that there was just way too much to talk about with Avengers Endgame, and now that I've seen it twice, you've only seen it the once still, but we do feel the need to discuss it in depth with spoilers, considering our review was very vague. So if you haven't checked that review out already, probably start things off by giving that a peep, and then coming back and seeing our in-depth thoughts here.
So this is your last chance because we're about to jump into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's talk about Fat Thor. Because, what a bold decision.
Let's start somewhere weird.
And let's start somewhere weird. Now look, I hadn't watched a single trailer for Endgame at all.
Neither of us had.
Neither of us had. I hadn't seen a single piece of footage. I hadn't seen anything at all. I went back and watched all the trailers. I can't believe the marketing campaign for this film and how much they kind of hid from audiences.
Yeah.
To the fact that they completely blindsided us with Thor as well. They didn't show anything at all. Obviously they showed hardly anything from the second half of the film, which was just amazing. And thank you, Disney, for doing that. And also the balls of Disney. The fact that they can release a film this gigantic with such little marketing. But Fat Thor, absolutely genius. Now, let's talk about Chris Hemsworth here because we didn't mention him in the review and he absolutely knocked it out of the park once again. He took Thor to a whole new place in Ragnarok, and once again here, he shows the emotional depth of Thor. And what was really, really impressive, as much as the first two Thor films for many people, didn't really hit the mark. I really enjoy the first one. The second one has its moments. But here in Endgame, they found the emotional substance from those films and used them perfectly. Especially his connection with his mother, because those moments were just poignant. They were really beautiful.
There was a great thing with Thor where Infinity War looked at how much he'd lost, and there's that great scene between him and Rocket, which might actually be the defining scene of the movie for us. And then kind of progressing that further into Endgame, and he goes through that journey in Infinity War. He rocks up to the battle in Wakanda and he fails to kill Thanos, and the snap more or less happens because of him. And so you've got this character who's got the weight of all of that, everything he's lost, plus half the universe being kind of decimated is, at least partially his fault, is weighing on him. And so there was, I like that they stuck to that through line throughout the movie of this guy being so totally, completely broken. And it's going to be interesting seeing in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I'm assuming is going to be his next appearance, what is done with his character. I'm low-key praying for a weight loss montage where Groot is his trainer and he goes through some Rocky style montage to get back into shape. But there was just a fantastic thing with seeing that with Thor's character, seeing that he was allowed to remain broken. And then I think there was a lot of catharsis for both of us seeing how he kind of came back and found his way back to being himself, at least in character and maybe not in proportions. Now, we started things off kind of light because obviously people died in this movie, and we've been demanding those life and death stakes from Marvel movies for a long time. And I do want to say, I think recently we've found that there's a lot more to stakes in a film than people dying. Your movie doesn't just have real stakes because death is something that's on the line. There's a lot more than that, and Marvel movies have always had that very personal stakes. But in this movie, we actually have permanent deaths, and they're really soul-crushing. I feel like I am going to be defeated by the fact that Tony Stark is dead for a long time, primarily because of the way this movie handled it. I mean, it really puts the hurt on.
Yeah, it really hits you in the guts. I mean, I remember after it, you kept saying, I was like, man, I just cried in my car on the way home. That really hit me. And it was hitting me over time, but it wasn't until I started rewatching the trailers, and then I work at a cinema and I saw a few clips in the film again, and I was like, my God. He's gone.
Yeah, just the arc of Tony and Steve and Natasha, and obviously Vision's not coming back, at least, until the TV show, so we'll see how that goes. And obviously Black Widow has a film coming up, but this is her death in the universe. And the film, I think, handled those farewells really effectively. It really rounded out their kind of character arcs and gave them defining moments to exit on. I mean, I am Iron Man will forever be. If it wasn't already an iconic line before, it's now just transcendent. That actual moment shared between Tony and Doctor Strange with just that slow one That's the one reality where it goes their way. Just incredible. And I think I didn't expect Tony to be the one that would die in self-sacrifice. After seeing the movie twice, it totally makes sense in its setup. I always thought it was going to be Cap. But it being a Russo brothers movie, and them having their final moment with Cap and Peggy, and oh god, that defeated me so hard. What a fantastic final shot.
Unbelievable. Like, what a way to finish a film. You know what's really impressive and really exciting about what they've done with Endgame here is it had seemed for me for a long time with these MCU films, it's like, where are they going to end? Everything felt infinite. It was constantly like, and now the post-credit scene for the next one, and now the next one, and now what's up next, and here we are. But no, here we are now finally at the end game. We're at the end of this phase of the MCU. And what was really beautiful in two films where they've kind of handled everything on an infinite scale with the Infinity War, they found something that was finite.
Yeah,
something that was
back down to something close and
They
small.
found something that was real and grounded and of this earth, which we understand as humans. They found that human aspect in something that was just so ultimate. And like, I mean, how did they write this film?
Yeah, how did they write this movie? Endgame for me is like, even if I hadn't agreed with any storytelling decision they'd made, or even if I hadn't have liked any of the movie, I feel like I would have had to have at least marveled at the fact that they made this movie with so many plot threads and so many kind of rounding off storylines, so many callbacks. And again, there's something that we've heard get brought up is like, this movie is pretty much entirely fan service. Well, I think that's missing. You're misunderstanding what fan service actually is. All the stuff in this movie was capitalizing on things that have been set up before. They are all setups that are still in play. And because this movie has possibly more payoffs than any kind of finale of anything ever, it's gonna feel like there's a lot of winks and nods at the audience, when I really feel like there's so much more than that. Let's look at moments that have passed, and by kind of bringing those moments to the future, we're kind of seeing how much the characters have changed in that time and how much our understanding of the world has changed. And that's the point.
Totally. And I mean, like, sure, you can call it fan service. You know what I call it? Pure creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the given circumstances of this film. The fact that they decide, okay, these characters need to travel back in time in order to save it. Where are they going to travel back in time to? Okay, they're going to travel back in time to the original Avengers film. They're going to choose points which is both nostalgic and engaging for us as audience members. So sure, yeah, it pleases us as fans, but also they're creatively getting everything they can out of those moments. I mean, consider the fact that they had Captain America fight Captain America. They didn't have to have that scene in the film, but they did because it was a creative choice from those given circumstances that they had written. I mean, it's just astounding.
It just makes for satisfying storytelling, like that Captain America bit in particular. You know, seeing Cap use the information that Bucky is still alive against the other version of himself. Just things like that build on the knowledge of this world. And that's the one thing that I keep kind of being stunned by, is just how much this movie draws on. I think we were expecting some epic Avengers movie that was a conclusion to the Thanos kind of saga, the Infinity Saga.
Oh, I was, yeah.
But it's so much more than that. This is a conclusion to everything that has come before. And yes, it opens new doors. I mean, in the ending, as much as there's a finality to the funeral of Tony Stark, which is just the best thing ever, and you know, there's the finality to the stuff with Steve Rogers, that it's opening up new ideas with this new kind of reformed Guardians of the Galaxy that now includes Thor's. There's the promise of a future, and I think that's what's so exciting about a movie like this, is as much as it's able to close all of these doors, it's going to open a whole lot of new ones, and that's really important.
And it also opened old doors. I mean, for me personally, like, I have reason and merit to go back and watch Thor Dark World right now.
Yep.
Or any other MCU film, because I know that the payoff will be, when I go to watch Endgame, it'll be something so much more special.
Improved every movie.
There'll be something more special for me to get out of it. And I mean, like, consider these films, like, you know, 20 years from now, where will we be? Like, whether it be with a family or whether it be with like a family member or what have you, when you go to revisit when you go to revisit these films and what you get out of them that time, it's just, it's such an achievement. The fact that they can conclude this entire saga series the way they have with Endgame.
And the fact that they're able to basically add a whole lot of value to every single film along the way. It doesn't matter if we don't like all of them. Endgame single-handedly gives every single film that has come before it some form of value, and I think that that might just be the most incredible thing about it.
I mean, oh god, take Thor's monologue where he's reflecting on the journey that he went through in Thor Dark World, and he's trying to explain the plot and the premise to the rest of the Avengers, and he's standing there and he's just mumbling and he's dragging on, and everyone's like, man, Thor, you just gotta stop. But it's such a beautiful moment, and you, as an audience member, you're sitting there and you're like, you're just... Oh,
you get it. You just get it. You get what they're doing, and we just appreciate that immensely. Endgame doesn't just say goodbye to Steve and Tony. It also says goodbye to what could possibly be most of the original Avengers lineup. I don't think we're going to really see Clint or Natasha again. Obviously, we are going to see Natasha again in the Black Widow movie, but we're not going to see them going forward in this continuity again. And Natasha's death scene will never not have the impact, regardless of a film coming out, you know, wherever that film happens to be set. That honestly crushed me, because as soon as they turned up to that planet, everyone's got that same feeling going, wait, I've seen this before and I know only one of them's coming back. And I think what makes that sequence so remarkably written and directed, because it's just emotionally peaking the entire time. Very difficult stuff to do. But the fact that both Clint and Natasha are willing to sacrifice themselves, but neither wants to see the other do it. And that makes for an incredibly compelling scene dramatically. And the Russos really mined everything out of what was on the page there to get that. And the performers really brought it. Like, they were stunning.
Totally. I mean, right up to the very end, we have Hawkeye holding on to Natasha and like not wanting to let go.
Even after he's let go, like...
just us as audience members not wanting to let go of one of these characters, but being put in a position where we're forced to. Where we're forced to accept that, sorry, but guys, one of these characters have to go. And then we watch them go through that.
People talk about the Russos not being great direction, but if there's one scene I can point to in the movie as truly fantastic direction, it is that scene. Just that unwillingness to let go, like you've just nailed there. It's incredible. And that scene. It's going to be hard to say goodbye to both of them. It's fantastic to see that Clint is back with his family. I think he's well and truly earned his retirement now. And I think there's no better note that he could have gone out on than this. And also, I don't know really what's going to be happening with Bruce Banner, with the Hulk after this. We do want to say that what a bizarre thing they did with his character, but what a beautiful thing.
What an absolutely beautiful thing. What a magical thing.
Just a gold mine. Gold mine of stuff that could be brought from that. And there wasn't a single moment where there's just so much stuff they mined out of Bruce's character in this that I just live for. There's a part where he's eating his own Ben & Jerry's flavor ice cream. Don't know if you noticed that. So many little things in there like that, which is that classified as an Easter egg? Is that what most people on the internet are into? That kind of thing? Yeah.
There are just so many big moments to consider in this film. It's kind of ridiculous. But I think what's really impressive and what makes so many of them so remarkable and so memorable is the fact that the Russo brothers were allowed to be patient with this film. Take 3 hours to tell this story, which is exciting that a studio such as Marvel/Disney can allow that to happen, because I think we do need sometimes bigger, longer films. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Just
stuff could have been cut, but I'm glad it wasn't. Put it that way. There's probably jokes that could have been cut. Glad they didn't. Glad it's exactly the way it is.
Because the film opened with patience, and sure, it then all of a sudden took off like a rocket. But
then subverted everything because they couldn't take down Thanos that way. The plan didn't work and fucked me up 5 years later.
5 years later, and here we are. We have beautiful moments where we have obviously Paul Rudd return as Scott Lang. We have the beautiful moment with Steve Rogers when he's counseling people, and then he goes back and speaks to Natasha.
And we just crushed.
Poignant moments with our favorite characters, and we get to kind of reconnect with them and reach a deeper sense of empathy because they're now living in such different circumstances.
You've seen this thing of like where they were and where they are now, and filling in the blank of just how much misery and despair there would have been in that time in between really, really endears us to the characters. And I've got to say, I really adore the fact that this movie was not afraid for this big tentpole blockbuster. Marvel movies quite often have us feeling fantastic. This movie was totally okay with being miserable for most of its runtime, of being kind of this all hope is lost type feeling for so long of it, and also that feeling of just not needing to inject laugh out loud comedy until, you know, they kind of bring Thor into it with New Asgard, which that sequence with Korg and everything was just fantastic. I live for that. New Asgard is my life. Please make that a TV show. But I like the fact that just for most of the movie, you know, there's bits in the second act and whatnot, but it wasn't about trying to make you lose your shit laughing. It was just little moments of humanity where there was, you know, jokes came from that, and there was funny moments. And I like that it wasn't trying to be an overt comedy. I think that's really important from a tonal point of view. And you mentioned the sequence of Scott Lang coming back, and imagine what that would be like coming back to that world 5 years later. And just that sequence of him at the memorial trying to find what I assume was his daughter's name in that case, and seeing his own. Not only how fantastic that shot was, the long take that just kind of spun and twisted around, having that same sense of confusion. It's something the Russos do really well, is pivoting on characters and rotating the camera like that. But then that moment where he gets to the front door and he knocks, and Cassie Lang comes out 5 years older, and he barely even recognizes her, and so do we. That moment might be one of the most powerfully emotional moments in the movie, and I absolutely adore it.
Unreal, and Paul Rudd handled it so goddamn well. I mean, like,
he was so good in this whole movie.
What an amazing concept, though, for like people on Earth just to vanish, and then to see how people are going to handle it. Wait, hold on a minute. I think there's a TV show. There's a TV show.
The greatest TV show of all time.
There's a TV show that uses this concept.
The Leftovers.
The Leftovers.
Guys, check that show out. If you're a big fan of what was done with the first 45 minutes of this movie, please check out the TV show The Leftovers. It deals with a world where people vanish and the people left behind are left to pick up the pieces. Highly recommend. Now, the way this movie handled time travel, I don't know how much sense it makes, because time travel doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if you really try to follow the rules super accurately, you can't tell interesting things in a story. And so I'm kind of just rolling with everything they decided to do in this movie. I'm not trying to logically work out whether it makes sense, because the story we got fucking worked, and that's the point. And so while there's little things where I'm like, Peter just goes back to school and everyone's all in different years now, like how does that work? And there's stuff like that where I'm like, you know, there could be issues there, but I don't think they matter. And I kind of hate to see people going forward seeing this movie getting hung up on trying to work out the logistics of the time travel, because I think the movie kind of did a pretty good job of covering it.
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of silly to kind of really kind of dig that deep. I mean, for starters, they went out and they set their own rules. They talked about what time travel has been like in other movies, literally, and they made jokes about it. And they're like, no, this is what it is. And then from that, they grew so much more story as well, because they could then start to bend and play with those rules. And when things go wrong, it's like, okay, what the hell happens now? Which is really exciting as an audience member watching that. And of course, at the end of the day, they had this little thing called the Infinity Gauntlet where it gets snapped at the end. And so really, I mean, like,
Tony kind of could have made whatever world he wanted to have at that point. Yeah, there's probably stuff logistically that probably won't work, but for storytelling purposes, I really like the world state we are left with, and the fact that he still has his family even if he's gone. Just kills me. It just kills me. Cheeseburgers. I love you 3000. Oh, how about that whole third act though?
Let's just talk about that. The moment of Tony's death is so beautifully done. I mean, to have Tom Holland come in as Peter Parker, and that relationship, how much that's grown over the last two films, is unbelievable. And that will only carry through both Tom Holland's performance as Peter Parker and also the Spider-Man films going forward, which is
that's gonna have on him.
Freaking exciting. Like, that ripple effect is going to be unbelievable. On top of that, to not only have Peter Parker come up to him, but then Pepper Potts be like, "Step aside, son." And like, my God. People talk about Gwyneth Paltrow all the time in all sorts of different ways, but I'm sorry, she handled that scene so freaking well. Like, consider how many different ways an actor could take that scene.
Could have been crying like blah.
She came in strong.
You can rest now.
And she slowly just let it up, and then, oh God, damn it.
The whole funeral sequence, it was genuinely mind-boggling. Like, I was kind of too busy crying to really pay attention the first time I saw it, but they got the entire fucking MCU to pretty much come together for that funeral scene, down to the point that they had Harley, the kid from Iron Man 3, who is now a teenager, standing at the back in the funeral. general. That from a sheer, like, I couldn't believe how many actors they got in one shot together there. The movie in general, how do you get that many actors in a movie together? To have even 5 of these people together is incredible. But at the point that you've got Robert Redford, Michael Douglas, Natalie Portman, you've got so many people in movies together that you just never would have kind of dreamt of. And that's just from a, again, logistical standpoint, how is this movie not amazing to everyone? But back to that third act, let's talk about being emotionally peaked for the entire time. As I've said, I've seen it twice, and my heart rate for the entire thing was still through the roof. I was like, is someone kicking the back of my chair? And then I was like, no, that's my heartbeat. Because just the moment of Cap facing down Thanos' entire army, just wow. And even before that, the 3 of them, Iron Man, Cap, and Thor, going to face off against Thanos. Just wow. Cap getting the hammer.
It's jaw-dropping, and it's so exciting as an audience member watching it. And also, like, the fact that they've built so much around Steve Rogers' characters, like, over this entire, 22 film series, really. And, like, those moments where he does face off against all of them. And for me, watching it, I was like, you know what? You know, maybe he could do it.
Maybe he'd go. He'd keep going. And just that...
Kudos to Chris Evans for actually sustaining that optimism through Steve Rogers' character.
Yeah, the fact that we were like...
time.
I was like, yeah, he'd be fucked, but you know what? He'd give it a go. He'd give it a red hot go because he never gives up. And then just hearing that on your left... and the portals opening up and everyone coming back. Look, I don't think they could have handled everyone returning in any more of a satisfying way. And I'm not going to lie, that scene peaked for me at seeing Pepper in her own Iron Woman suit. I don't know what that's called. But anyway, that was just, I was like, oh, they've just made the best thing I've ever seen. Like, honestly, the emotion of everyone coming back one by one, seeing them returning, and then throughout the battle, seeing people reconnect. There was a particular moment between Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne that I absolutely loved. Just their little moment where they're going to go after the van, they're going to try to get to the van. Just that little moment that was shared between them, I absolutely adored. And there was so much of that throughout that entire battle. It's not a battle, as I said, about the ebb and flow and the who's going to win, can they overcome it, can they do it? Yeah, that's all there. But it's very much about reconnecting people, bringing them back together and showing how these people, what these people can achieve when they work together. And I think nothing better encapsulates what the Avengers has been about as singular standalone films, or even as a franchise on their own. The 4 Avengers films have been about people coming together to overcome things that are basically out to destroy them. And I think that was couldn't have been handled any better.
Yeah, and I mean, what's kind of really impressive about that scene is the fact that it's all kind of danced around the weight of Thanos. I mean, to have the fact that Thanos can be like, yeah, I'm going to wait. I'm going to sit here and wait. Like, we all know the power he has. We know the
even
depth
without
of
the
him.
stones, you're just like, don't mess with this guy.
Yeah, don't mess with this guy. And it's incredible to see how far Marvel have come in regards to their villains and how they've built upon it, and they've learnt and they've learnt and they've learnt to, like, finally create something like Thanos.
To the point that when he discovers their plan, when through Nebula he discovers the Avengers plan, and you to be able to say in your head, oh shit. It's not often that we'd really get that feeling from a villain in an MCU movie before. It's just like, oh, yeah, no, they'll sort this one out. But for me, and for you, and for most other people that have seen this movie, Thanos finding out about that and gonna try to spin it to his advantage, you're like, God damn it, they're fucked.
That shit's terrifying.
And it actually carried through. The threat of his army felt real. It had that real Lord of the Rings type feel as the Orc army is facing down Gondor. It's got that same feeling, and I just what a wonderful third act battle. Just absolutely gorgeous. The Russos filled it with so much color, so much life, so much energy. The writers really nailed all the interplays between the characters. And then it was just brought home with that resolution that really felt like it tied up everything it needed to for this Infinity Saga. I feel like that covers pretty much everything we wanted to, but if we're just going to run off a couple of other things, love the way this film handled Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. I like the fact that she didn't just totally change the tide of the battle. I mean, she did, but it wasn't like she just single-handedly defeated Thanos. Thanos gave her a run for her money, and also her turning up and decimating his ship was a perfect display of her over-the-top powers without making her effect on the remaining battle too overpowering. I really love that. There was so many other moments as well. What else is there? There's like...
I mean, I think like you just, well, touching on that, like the sheer balance that they managed to achieve between all the characters across the board here. The fact that we can just have kind of like tiny little moments with such big characters where we've spent, you know, an entire film with them. Like for example, Black Panther, barely in this film, but still has the potency that he carries, which was like so exciting to see.
Everyone's useful. Everyone has a purpose. You know, Rocket, Groot, all of them. They just all have some form of impact. And, oh yeah, good stuff. We would genuinely be here for hours if we were trying to cover absolutely everything in this movie that we thought was worth mentioning. But we've kind of just had to cover the primary things that have had a big impact on us. So there it is.
I mean, totally. Like, I mean, look, the film is 3 hours, and even if we did a 3-hour video, we probably would only cover like an hour of the content in the film. It's a really hard thing to talk about. But for this present moment, where we are in our own lives, I mean, the fact that I've only watched it once, you've only watched it twice, it only just came out a few days ago. This is kind of what's on our mind in regards to speaking about this film. And I mean, you know, who knows? In a year's time, we might have a whole lot of different things to speak about. Where the MCU goes moving forward as well is going to be just as exciting.
I have a video about this coming out on my other channel that you guys can check out. So there you go.
There you go. I mean, like, yeah, but look, this is where we are, guys. This is all we can really say about Endgame for now. I'm kind of really excited to see what else other people are thinking as well out there and what their experiences were like. So really, let us know.
That was our in-depth spoiler review of Avengers Endgame. I'm assuming you've seen it already because this would have ruined everything.
It'd be really impressive if you got through all of this and went, oh, I have not seen the film yet. So obviously you've seen the film, so let us know all your comments and your thoughts down below. Come on, guys, keep it a little bit more positive. And if you do have critical things to say, be critical about it, but don't be negative. Anyway, let us know down in the comment section below.
What? Ah, you're thinking of don't be an asshole.
Oh,
that's
don't
what you're
be
going
an asshole.
for.
That's what I'm saying.
If you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more stuff from us, you can do that down there somewhere, as well as my other channel over there somewhere.
And don't forget, you can always check us out on Instagram and Twitter, both at Breaking Banter, Bailey Parkinson and Jay Pidden. Check us out there.
Check it out down there. And of course, if you do really want to help support this channel, you can support us on Patreon. Thank you so much to anyone doing that already. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you guys in the next one.